Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to RLAfterShock, the longest-running independent podcast for everything that is Rocket League Esports in the European scene. I'm the Eternal J. I'm joined by DigiBay for episode 52 of the podcast. But man, how have you been this last week?
It's been a good week, as you know. We're just wrapping up TCS, so that's like, a natural lot of stress with your shoulders because it's been a long season. Looking forward to the finals this weekend. We'll get into that a bit later. But otherwise, it's just been, I'm not going to lie, one of relaxation. We're coming to the end of esports season it is, and I've been having proper sleep. It's been great.
You say the end of the season. I say the end of the fucking year, dude. I've still got a lot of Counter-Strike work because we're working on this Counter-Strike project. And actually, after we record the podcast today, we are on a bit of a hard out because after we record the podcast today, we're putting together this special little thing, me and my CSGO duo partner. Mm-hmm. So we've got we've got a hell of a day ahead of me at the very least. And I'm working all the way up to the 22nd. So I only get a few days before Christmas to essentially get my shit together and buy everyone the presents that they need. Plus, of course, as you mentioned, TCS this weekend, Arena Clash in 2 weeks' time, and doing all the CSGO online stuff, plus this extra project. It's going to be a busy December for me. So
plus LAN. Can we not forget RLCS LAN?
Plus Madrid LAN, yes, because the stage has been set for the European scene and for the North American scene, actually, for that matter as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about the European details because, of course, last weekend was the playoffs. We're breaking down all the results from that, plus previewing the rival series playoffs as well, coming up in just a few days' time. All that, plus the latest news, including new opportunities being looked for upon the scene, the Madrid format being announced, and of course the unfortunate news pertaining to Rewind Gaming. All that coming up on today's show. Let's start, of course, as we always do, with Le News, and a pretty big one that broke just about a few hours ago, technically. One from last night, essentially, that pertaining to Silent Echo leaving Ghost Gaming. This was rumored for a little bit. Obviously, there was a new coach being cited in some of the scrims for Ghost, spectating them from the RL spectator slot. So there was the prospect of Silent Echo being out of Ghost for the moment. But obviously, he's made an official announcement. Obviously on Twitter. I'm looking for a Rocket League team in need of a coach. 2 years experience in RLCS, coaching Ghost continuously from the first MBC 2v2 through to week 3 of this season's league play. So it's actually been out for a little bit of time. 8 years additional coaching experience in other fields such as sales, telecoms, and sports. And also he puts a secondary tweet to this one. I'll also be looking for casting opportunities in the meantime. So if you need someone to say a lot of words at a camera, I'm your guy. 2 years casting RL tournaments and private events with regular TV appearances scattered throughout. Observer for DreamHack Summer 2017, DreamHack Atlanta 2017, and DreamHack Leipzig 2018. So obviously a very experienced individual. And I have to say that I'll start obviously the story by wishing him the best of luck because it's tough these days, and obviously I'm always going to be on hand to say, hey, I can help you out as much as possible. But yeah, it does suck to sort of see Silent get kicked out of his team to a certain extent, or whether or not I don't really know what the actual particular situation of that whole thing is. But I got a bit of a soft spot for Silent Echo because he's kind of the reason why I'm even here to begin with.
Yeah, and he is one of those OGs, even back to the days, having to step on with Observe, and I think it was back in the DreamHacks in 2017, the very original ones like Leipzig and that. Yep. If you remember, PSG took that one way back when Blue was still on the roster. And it's just one of those cases of he was always involved, finally got that concrete coaching deal. You got to think 2 years now with Ghost, and unfortunately, good things come to an end, and hopefully he's one of the most qualified coaches anyway, so he should be able to find something new. But yeah, I can imagine he's probably bricking it at this moment because naturally, where do you go from here? So best wishes to the dude.
Well, obviously, again, me and Silent, we go back a couple of years as well. I remember he was, again, like I said, he was part of the reason why I'm even a caster to begin with, because he was always really invested in the Rocket League scene. He was essentially me before I became me, basically. He was one of the guys that was always pushing for Rocket League Esports to be a big international thing and pushing for it to be a staple at a lot of smaller LAN events as well. He was there at I-60. In fact, I remember striking up a conversation for him, and that conversation actually led to everything that's going on today. I would not be involved in the Rocket League scene if it wasn't for his encouragement. So obviously I'm going to wish him the best of luck. Obviously I want to see him succeed. And again, I don't know where this leaves Ghost, to be honest, because I feel like Ghost had a really, really good thing going, especially at DreamHack Valencia, where I got the chance to speak to the guys. Right now, in terms of the North American scene, I believe that they are not qualifying for the Season 8 Championship. I believe they actually went out in, what was it, the lower quarterfinals against E United, if I recall correctly, which sounds about right to me. I'm going to actually verify this real quick. Yeah,
they dropped to Pittsburgh and then dropped to E United, yeah.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Ghost Gaming kind of got the short end of the straw in that respect. But where does this leave the Ghost Gaming side without essentially their staple coach?
I'm going to say now probably they'll build up. Like you say, they've got a new coach in place from the sounds of it. And I think Ghost are looking to next season. This is going to be a big off season. I could expect a roster transfer, and they'll be looking to bolster themselves and try and make a push next season. If that don't happen, you could see Ghost not really make it. You got to think they were by default a bit of a top 4 team, like that 4th spot fighting alongside Rogue for the last couple of seasons, but they were never good enough to be cemented in top 4. And that's just the way NA Esports always was. Apart from this season, naturally, there was the whole big change up, so it should have been their time to really shine and come through. But they sort of bottled it themselves, you know. They got 4th, they got a good deal because they got into the upper bracket of qualifications, but then they just doubled out. It's sometimes just the way the cookie crumbles, Joe.
And in fairness, there's some pretty decent teams that they've actually had to lose to. Obviously, the Pittsburgh Knights and E United, hot off their promotion. You guys will probably know them if you're like us and you don't follow the North American scene as closely. You'll know them as the Peeps and Birds and the Bees, essentially. So.
America's skill is just sort of closed up.
Considering where the North American scene is currently is at the moment, with teams like this beating the likes of Cloud9 and G2, and Cloud9 and G2 being down in relegations, like, I don't think there's any shame in Ghost Gaming losing out to those kind of players and those kind of teams. So, you know, fair play to them. Obviously, again, it does suck because they were within one game twice of making LAN. So they kind of, again, drew the really short straw in that respect. But again, like I feel like, and back to the central topic at hand. Obviously, for Silent Echo, it does kind of suck. It looks like he's been out of the team for a while, though, which is the case of making this official. So, you know, again, best of luck, mate. And if you need anything, come hit us up. I'm always willing to help you. I can't speak for Bacon, but you know, I'm always willing to give you a hand, just because you gave me a hand way back in the early days. So, let's move on. Let's talk about some really, really good news. Madrid. Obviously, we're looking forward to the LAN finals very, very soon, and this cropped up on the most recent RLCS broadcast stream. That being the group stage format for RLCS Season 8 Worlds, and I'm shocked, Bacon. They actually listened. They actually did something good. I'm okay with this, honestly. I really am, dude. Obviously, like, we've been talking for ages about how probably there's a good chance that they're going to make a 4-group 3-team round robin system again, like they did for the last World Championship. That was truly a terrible system, an awful format, and we expected it to be no different for this season. But last week, you said to have a 2-6 teams double elimination brackets, and I said that's impossible because you can't see it. Well, fuck me, they actually did it. You called it. You actually called it, bro. And this is where we stand as a result right here. This is these are the groups for the World Championship. Here we've got 6 teams seeded into essentially like a not King of the Hill style format, but essentially like essentially like sort of like that kind of thing, you know, where they where they've got to where each team sort of has to move forward and face up against the top seeds of each of the individual regions. So basically, this group stage is sort of better than the last one, but I don't know, man. I feel like there's something very off about the way that this format works, because obviously you can see that each team has 2 lives, but I'm thinking that I think that I think that if you lose in the quarterfinals and the semifinals, then the respective teams still drop to the losers semifinals. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like this is a bit of a weird group. The
problem here is that it feels weird that to go to playoffs, you can get a bye into playoffs. So that's a little bit icky there as such. Like, that's not the technical terms, we'll say. But for me, my big gripe, and this is probably going to sound like a strange one, and maybe I'm trying to be too pro the smaller regions, but that EU and NA top two get the buys, whereas the top one team from both OC and SAM don't get a buy at all. They're the same as South America. They're the same as third and fourth from NA and EU. I think that the top two teams from those regions, like, one from NA, one from SAM, which, if I'm correct, is the Three Sins, and the top team from OC, which is Renegades, should get those buys from the second seeds from the other two regions. Like, it's just a small little change there, but I think that overall is the fairest sort of result,
Again, I'm sort of concerned with the whole double elimination aspect, because it seems to me like, I'm actually going to quickly look this up on Wikipedia so I can have a look-see at how this should work out. So the loser of the semi-finals drops to the same stage as the loser of the quarterfinals. And to me, that feels like a very wrong way to do double elimination. I won't lie, Bacon. Like, again, this feels like an improvement above last time, but it's still scuffed beyond belief, I think.
No, it makes sense when you look at it, and it's just trying. It's essentially, what can Psyonix do when they picked a weird fucking number of teams? Don't
that's the
ever
problem
use
again.
12 teams.
It comes down to the fact that they just don't want to get more teams to land. And it's like, this could all be rectified if you just added 4 more spots to the World Championship. And they could have done that so easily as well. Just say, like, look, right, so your top 4 teams from each region, you don't even have to fucking, go through this whole thing of mucking about with the format. Like, legit, all you have to say is just top 4 from each region, done. That you can already decide a top 4 from EU and North America, and I believe that the systems are in place to do it for OC and SAM. If I quickly take a look at the brackets, so you can do that so easily right there. Like, there's a double elimination bracket for the OCE stuff that I can see where we would have had Chiefs and Ground Zero, I believe. Chiefs and Ground Zero also being involved in this one, and for South America. Yep, exact same system in place as well. We would have had Lotus and Ints also getting involved in the World Championship. Again, all the systems are there. It's just a case of saying, right, rather than normal, we're just going to say 4 more teams.
Yeah, and even then, if you don't want to do it exactly that way, you could just have, say, 1 team per region gets an extra spot. Let's do it by open signups. Let's just put in a wildcard team for each region. I know I'm going extremist on this one, Jay,
yeah, you are going real extremist on this one.
I like wildcard aspects into big tournaments into this, because who knows, you could see, let's just say AS Monaco somehow makes it through the open sign up, taking down the other RLCS teams from EU, but then they somehow go through and do crazy at Worlds. It's just, the stories there are fantastic. And then RLCS still has the integrity, because that's like your safer, more secure route, and you get that replay system.
I feel like with the wildcard system, I feel like the wildcard system is very, very it devalues a lot of what the other teams are trying to put into this one, because if you get a team like if you get a team that comes in from the open qualifier, and it's like, well, what about all the teams that have been grinding through RLRS and trying to get their way through RLCS? Do those guys not get the opportunity as well? Like, if it was the case that the wildcard system was decided through the teams that made it to their respective playoffs and would try and, like what we talked about with our special sort of with our like, ideal world championship RLCS setup, where we talked about how the idea of the wildcard land or the last chance land qualifiers from the World Championship country. Like, if we did something like that, where the top teams from that didn't make it to Worlds were able to try and get a last opportunity spot, then I could see that happening. I don't like the idea of an open qualifier, though. That's a bit too extreme for my liking. And again, I feel like that this system as a result is a little bit messed up in that respect. Like, for the World Championship, where there were 10 teams before we had the massive double elimination bracket, then there was always like that extra lifeline where if you made it forward into the next stage, then you would or if you were one of the higher seeds, you'd already skip around if you were in that position, because that's kind of how the double elimination worked. It wasn't It didn't fuck around with like it didn't fuck around with a lot of the with a lot of like the positions that that each of the teams sort of made it to. If that makes am I explaining this correctly?
Yeah, you're doing fine. But to the counterpoint of that, then it means the teams that come in as the first and second teams from EU and NA don't have that much of an advantage. So it should be fairer overall. They do have that slight advantage by having the bye, but naturally, if they lose in that match, they'll drop down to the same spot as the other teams.
But if the teams that are, if the teams that make it through the quarterfinals and drop to the semi-finals, that's the problem I'm seeing right there. It feels like, again, it's an improvement over the last system. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to bash this system like that much at all. But I'm just saying that, again, there are better options, and this all comes down to that 12-team system. Like 12 teams are such an awkward number of teams to have. Why did it have to be this way in the first place? It feels like, again, Psyonix were just trying to limit the number of matches. Like before, we had, I believe it was 19 series on stream from the last championships. Like all of them had 19 matches because that's how Psyonix wanted to do things. They made the shit format from last season to try and keep in line with that. And this time, I think it's increased to like 21 matches total. Let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Yeah, 21. So 21. So a total of 2 extra series is, and again, it feels like Psyonix are sticking to those like robust rules by only adding an extra 2 series rather than creating a format that's robust and it works.
Yeah, create a format that's robust, it works, and bring in the B stream so that you can facilitate it, because that seems to always be the problem, is that because there's only one stream, you're limited by a certain number of games, so you're limited to certain brackets. If we're able to, say, change this up, let's just say we stick with 12 teams, but you start off with 2 groups of 6 that then gets rid of the bottom 2 teams, let's just say by a single round robin over the first day or and a half or so, then you move into an 8-team playoff. That'd be so much better. Yes, you've got so many more games, but if you have 2 different streams running on, an A stream and a B stream as such, and make sure that they're both from LAN, that wouldn't be a problem, would it? And then just on the very last day, so it's only playoffs, that's when it's only A stream. You get rid of the B stream for that, because that's when you want everything to be super hyped up.
And it's like even if you didn't want to do it remote like DreamHack, like it wouldn't cost that much to get 3 guys out to run a small little quasi studio thing, and then just set up an extra 6 PCs towards like a side stage or some sort of like piece in the corner where people could go and watch that match and have those guys do it. Like, trust me, I've done the logistic calculations. I'm setting up something right now that literally could facilitate that kind of broadcast, and it doesn't cost that much at all. Like, it's simple, it's easy, and it solves all the issues of your broadcast situation.
You would just use the NGL studios, wouldn't you? And just their current studios.
You mean the NGE studio?
NGE, sorry. What did I say? Hell? But yeah, the NGE studios, and just do the B stream from there for the first 2 days.
Yeah.
That would be the most simplest thing. Yeah, like you said, just get a feed out. There'd be a back room akin to like just literally a meeting room, 2 lines of PCs set up in it, and that's all you need.
Like hell, in fact, if you really wanted to stretch things a little bit, you could potentially even do 2 groups in a single day if you were feeling particularly spicy. Like, actually, fuck it. Like, if you wanted to have a 16 teams GSL group stage, you could actually do the DreamHack thing and do a double elimination bracket, or like just have like all the group stage played out on the Friday, and then the Saturday would be the first round of double elimination. The Sunday would be the second round, the second half slash the grand finals, essentially. That can actually work. I could see that being a logistical possibility, especially if you're limiting from 16 to 8 and then 8 to 1. Like it feels like the mathematics line up.
The only problem is that I think one part that Psyonix wants is to have the teams featured on both days, and then so essentially you're, let's say, going to LAN here, your NRG or Vitality will be on at least 2 of the 3 days. And that's how they try to do it. So that's why I suggested the round robin, because you just do half of the groups on day 1 and then the other half showing both groups on day 2, and then day 3 being just playoffs, and just do single elim 18 playoff. Because
I don't understand what the justification is for that, though. Why would you want to get all the teams on at least 2 days? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
It's
like,
just them trying to bolster the amount of airtime that the teams get. Just seems. and make it more worthwhile that they're at
Why
LAN
though?
instead of just being
I don't
there for one
understand.
day.
I don't understand. Again,
Because
I'm trying to figure out the
this seems to be
reasoning.
Psyonix mentality. That's it. I don't get the understanding, but that's just how it has always seemed. Because
Look,
they try to
there's
push
got to
out
be a
everything like
first
that.
team out. There's got to be a team in last place. There's got to be someone who goes out at the very end, at the very beginning of the tournament, at every fucking tournament. So just fuck it, get it over, suck it up, and just move on with our lives. Like that's how easy it really is. It doesn't have to be so complicated, fucking, you know, like mathematical levels of like just like, you know, mental gymnastics essentially to try and, you know, justify some sort of way to get all teams in to, like 2 different days. Like, fuck it. Like just put it in 16-team GSL group stage. You go out in the first day, fuck you, you're done. Right? Leave it at that, okay? Anyways, that's the group stage for Madrid announced. It's better than last system, but it still has room for improvement. So let's move on and talk about some more RLCS stuff. In particular, this new little splash screen that's been cropping up on the front pages of most Rocket League games, essentially. Like we noticed this a couple of days ago, and most of the other people do because it made front page of Reddit. Is that there's now a full page ad when you start up Rocket League that promotes the Season 8 World Championship, saying, quote, "The best teams in the world are set to face off live in Madrid, Spain, on December 13th through 15th. Get your tickets on Ticketmaster to see who will earn the title of World Champion live and in person. Visit tickets.rlesports.gg to purchase. Press any button to continue." So, this is new. It's not new in the sense that this is not the first time Psyonix have done this, but this is the first time they promoted the RLCS directly. We saw them doing it with CRL a couple of weeks ago, and that was a little bit sort of like a sting to the face, or like a bit of a harsh sort of thing essentially. Rather than promoting the RLCS, they're promoting the CRL Championship. It's like, guys, come on. But well, they have actually reciprocated and done the same with the world title, Bacon.
Yeah, and looking through it, like for me, Jay, this I feel is more that we're getting closer to time and there's not been enough tickets sold. Have you actually gone on the Ticketmaster website and looked at like how many tickets are still left?
I have not seen the specific tickets. That it's a bit of a weird one because like it doesn't give you like a straight number like there is this many tickets left. It gives you the floor plan.
But yeah, you just click around the floor plan and there is a lot of like grandstand tickets. We all know the floor seating just like went straight away because naturally those are generally your better seats, aren't they? So every fan went in and was just there like, fuck, gotta get that straight away. But the grandstand seating, that's looking like there is so many tickets still free and available.
Yeah, and that's concerning, I want to say. Like, I don't know if it's concerning per se, because at the same time, I'm also thinking it's pretty typical. Because, like, well, how much support has Psyonix given the European scene in the last year or so? And the answer to that question is, well, not a whole lot outside of the Renegade Cups and, of course, the 2 Dream Hacks. So it's a bit of a fucking, like, you know, it's like people were very surprised that Psyonix would go ahead and do the half arena rather than the full arena. While I believe that personally we could have all done it if we pulled together, I think that a lot of the controversies in regards to the tickets not going on sale in time, or not being informed of when the tickets were going on sale. Yeah. Also, the issue that it seems like I still think it's overblown as fuck, but apparently the community disagree with me in saying that the broadcast language would be in Spanish. In the arena. It seems like that's affected a lot of people when really it shouldn't. And, well, it has essentially, but yeah, I feel like that they are is there a possibility that right now Psyonix are trying to, you know, like last second sell as many tickets as possible for the World Championship?
For me, yeah, it looks like that. They're just trying to get it out there. Maybe try and reach eyes that had never seen it before. You got to think of your average Joe that plays Rocket League, you know, on his PS4, let's say, for example, and doesn't actually know that much. Sees this whole RLCS, goes, oh, what is that? Or they've seen it before. It's like, oh, shit, Worlds has come around. Maybe I'll go have a little look at that. But the problem is with Worlds now, where it's in, you know, a different country, they're not as easy to just rock up, you know, and go see. This sort of stuff is like good for the Spanish community that might not know. But if you've got, say, an American player, or even like a British player that's just like, you know, a casual fan of Rocket League, they'll look at that and go, oh, that's nice, and then not pay any attention to it.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I do believe it's still positive promotion. I think it's still positive promotion. But in terms of like getting the tickets together, like guys, you realise that when you announced London, it was 6 weeks prior to the World Championship, and people were still complaining that they couldn't come. This is 3 weeks prior to the World Championship, and people obviously are going to be looking at this like, well, I can't do that because it's way too soon. It's also around Christmas time, so it's like, well, how the fuck can I justify all this money when, you know, we've all got to buy Christmas presents, we've got Christmas parties and shit to throw on. It's like, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on in December. The World Championship is not, it won't be a priority for many of the casual fans. And it's like, this was very short-sighted, I feel like, I think, from the Psyonix guys. Again, if they were able to put this out from the word go, as in this is the World Championship, the esports stuff is on every weekend, and they're all building up to this World Championship. You know, get your tickets, and so on and so forth. Plus, I also feel like it wasn't as in your face as a lot of the other splash screens were. Like, I remember the CRL the CRL announcement was actually on startup for me, but when I was playing Rocket League, when we did TCS this past 1 week, was when we first saw it. That actually, the splash screen didn't appear for me until after we'd done the first match and then moved on to and then gone back to the main menu after the fact. So already we're in gamer mode at that point. Who's paying attention to this kind of splash screen? I feel like there may have been some sort of programming error or some sort of issue in that respect that might cause some of the margins to go down in terms of what this promotion actually does.
We'll say though, it is a very pretty splash screen. I don't know.
Oh, it's lovely. It mimics the World Championship trophy essentially, where it's like the two cars on the ball, which I fucking think that's an amazing design for a trophy. In terms of the ticket sales themselves, though, like, is it a surprise that Psyonix or like that the community is not turned up for this event after all the controversy, all the drama, and the fact that EU has been the black sheep of RL Esports for the longest name ever, basically?
Well, yeah, OCE. We'll give that. But yeah, EU has just sort of like been forgotten about in the last year. And it is no surprise that coming into this, like, it all looked really good, and then one after the other, they sort of Psyonix kept knocking down balls that were just bad news upon bad news. And but yeah, I'm not surprised that the community probably isn't sending out all these tickets now.
Yeah, and it compiles to even more problems with the European region, because if people don't show up for Europe, then we're not going to get many World Championships. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pissed. I'm pissed, obviously, and I'm going to raise like certain levels of criticism. And obviously, for me personally, I was not going to attend this World just due to the fact I wasn't going to be able to have a good time. But like, you know, again, I feel like a lot of these like issues have all like compounded into other people also thinking the same sort of thing. But if we don't get people if we don't get people to fucking, you know, like turn up to this World Championship, then Europe's going to get even less support. And it's like this vicious cycle of like, don't support EU, people go away, try and support EU. There's not enough people, so you go back to North America and you just don't put any attention into Europe. And it's really, really frustrating as a fan of the European region, as someone who's watched the rise of the biggest teams in the world essentially just go absolutely ham and come out of the European scene. And it's like, we don't get European lands, we don't get, you know, World Championships. North America gets 2 out of 3 and we only get 1. And then it's like, well, is that justifiable for teams like Renault Vitality, who have you know, come out of the woodwork and, you know, done something, you know, 2 seasons in a row they've made their way into the World Championship by bringing in one of the big prodigies of the whole fucking, you know, scene? Is that really doing justice to the likes of Dignitas, the only dynastic team that we've ever seen outside maybe of Flipside Tactics, who even they're a pretty big team and legendary team of their own right? All these World Championship winning rosters, all these World Championship winning names all coming out and doing some really good work. Does it even do justice to the likes of fucking, you know, Turbo Pulsated NRG, arguably the best player to touch the game, and he's currently playing in a North American team? Does it do justice to the likes of REcipricity, who might well be the best team in the world at this very moment? You know, like, does it do that justice? I don't think it does.
Well, it's more the case of, like, yes, we know America's got the bigger fan base as such, but that's because you're continuously pandering.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you know, you're constantly, it's not even like you're just constantly appealing to the North American market with tons and tons of North American lands. You've also got tons of North American bubble scene stuff. You've got tons of North American support for lower than the RLRS coverage. Like, what happened to the Renegade Cup when for Europe, you know? What happened to all those bubble scene tournaments? What happened to the support of stuff like the Coliseum or the the rival esports seasonal opens, or even the rival week stuff, or the climb, or fucking the Rocket Baguette play. Like all these things have had to be self-funded by the community, and for Europe that's like very, very difficult to do because with Psyonix's stranglehold and everything, people don't want to get involved unless it's a Psyonix sponsored event. And meanwhile, North America. Meanwhile, North America gets the pass on the Beyond Astronauts tournaments. That has actually, it is in violation of the community rules, but they have not gotten any punishment put on them whatsoever. We've also had the WGN North American Championships, which, again, I can't reveal many of the details because I'm not sure how much is true, but if it is true, it pisses me off the circumstances around that tournament in the first place, which is another North American Championship, plus 2 DreamHacks, Beyond the Summit, fucking probably E-League is going to come back as well, 2 World Championships in the last in the last year alone. North America gets everything, and still we are the ones constantly producing talent, constantly on the cutting edge of Rocket League esports, and we just not getting any love. And then this shit comes along, people don't support it, and Psyonix are like, oh, why should we support Europe?
To which I was just going to say on that note, thank God for Rocket Baguette and the amount of stuff they're putting out across the whole Europe. Those guys, absolute G's. They are the light in the storm at the moment.
Yeah. They are the saviors of European Rocket League. Like, they've managed to make deals where we get host matches in the AS Monaco Stadium. I was there for that. That stadium is insane. I still have my VIP pass. They gave us free alcohol. It was amazing.
Doesn't take much to impress you, Jay, does it?
They offered to fly me out to Poland as well for a tournament, which I had to turn down because I already had other commitments. But they offered to fly me out to Poland and everything, and they're constantly trying to find new tournament organizers, find new sponsors to try and get more tournaments going. They're currently running the Rocket Baguette Superstar League, which is like the biggest thing since the Renegade Cup for the bubble scene, essentially. It's so fucking frustrating because they're doing this off their own back. They're getting very little return off of it, and it's all done out of love, essentially. And that summarizes the European scene as a whole. Unfortunately, love only gets you so far. I'm actually going to jump over to our next story as a result of this because obviously the biggest tragedy fucking happened this week. Rewind Gaming announced they are officially closing their doors, and this fucking hurts so bad. Now, for those of you who don't know, me and Bacon, we were always heavily involved with Rewind Gaming. Ever since its early days when they were running the 3 weekly tournaments where they had 3v3s, 2v2s, and 1v1s. This is way back in 2017 or so. That's like going back some ages. And Bacon was even, in fact, like a tournament operator and director, essentially, for the organization.
So to say that we planned the Coliseum in Neon Dream and sent all the proposals off, all that sort of jazz. And it was that case of I left Rewind, 3 months back now? But that was only purely because there was difference in views, and I was, removed from it purely because I didn't think to go in the same way as what they were trying to attempt, and it was like, just don't cause any conflict because we don't want any of that, You just got to keep plugging, everyone's got to be on the same page in the current climate of things.
Well, obviously, that has led to this announcement, which again came out about a week ago. It's a couple of days before my birthday, actually, so a fantastic birthday present. But obviously saying, we're sad to announce that Rewind Gaming will officially cease any future operations at the tournament organization. Thank you all for the great times and the huge support we received over the last 3 years. And again, this is all coming off the back of stuff like the Coliseum and the Neon Dream and all of the Rewind Gaming tournaments that tried to get run over the course of time. And it stings for me because, again, Rewind probably gave me the best opportunities of my life. Gfinity Elite Series, I'm pretty confident I wouldn't have got that job if it wasn't for the Coliseum, essentially, and getting the grand finals of that. And obviously the Neon Dream had some of the best fucking lower than RLRS talent that we've ever seen come through the level of Rocket League. Like, I wish that VOD was archived somewhere because that was some of the best casting I've ever done in my Rocket League history, essentially. Some of the best calls, some of the greatest times, all streaming out of this tiny fucking little shitty room, but an amazing atmosphere, an amazing, audience number, an amazing Rocket League as well. Like, it wasn't the most, high production value Renegade Cup monthly, but it was certainly one of the better ones for me personally,
Yeah, definitely, like, looking back to Neon Dream, it just shows, again, little bits of insight, like, where you're given a certain goal, you're given a budget, and you just have to make it work. And I know that's always the tale, but it's just amazing what everyone could do with that money and be able to get. And it always felt like every production company of Renegade Cups is trying to one up each other, weren't it? And like try
it
and
was
do
great.
that next big thing.
It was fantastic because it was always constantly like everyone was trying to go further and further and try and bring their own little unique spin on things. Like, you know, what was it? When the play happened, obviously that was Rocket Baguette using their trademark sort of like production value, and having a French and English stream at the same time was also fucking really, really cool. Or is it the Veritas one as well had or the Rocketeers one? I'm not sure who was running it officially, but they're the same entity essentially. But that one especially was like, you know, a case of like, oh, we're doing studios and shit, and we're having like people come to a live finals viewing, which is really, really, really cool. I love that a whole lot. And then there was obviously the Ember series that followed the Neon Dream, which I had the pleasure of working on, where basically almost every single match was broadcast, and that was really, really cool as well, because there were a lot of matches to do, a lot of storylines going into that one, and a lot of like great building as well. And every day, like we constantly were talking to the guys. We were constantly talking to the guys from Copenhagen Flames, yeah. Talking to them and saying, like, you know, listen, let's work on this broadcast. And they were constantly coming to us saying, look, what can we do to improve the broadcast? We have this idea. What do you think about it? How about this? How about that? It was always a fucking great time to work with those guys. And again, like, you know, talking about Rewind and the way that we all work together, like just the weeks leading up to it, plus that studio final that we did, and also everything just in terms of like just the way that Rewind operated in the bubble scene, like they contributed so much. It's just a shame that they're going to, you know, die as a forgotten entity essentially, as the bubble scene continues to regress further and further back.
Yeah, and you got to look at it as such. After Christmas last year, you know, going into spring of this current year, you would have thought after all that, that's when the support, everything should start to boom, but it didn't. It just stopped. And that was a really weird thing. So you got your orgs like, say, Rewind, that after that had just had the Coliseum, you know, done their Renegade Cup. Going in the spring, okay, you had the DreamHack stuff going on, which I don't know if a lot of like people know, but that's all volunteer stuff.
Yep.
The big companies are doing it because it's the biggest stuff currently going on in Rocket League. So why wouldn't you put your name on it? But no one is being paid. So you got to think as an org, yeah, you're doing like, I know Rewind, we got on every single DreamHack, but that's not bringing any money through a door. So you're not getting any money to be able to put on your own tournaments. Now, when you're there, say, it looks not like a lot of money, you know, putting on $50 weeklies, but you got to think that's $200 a month, Jay. That quickly stacks on up, and you're having to do that out of your own pocket. So naturally, that's not going to go well. And big tournaments are great fun to run, but the little weeklies are actually quite hard to get staff in for because they're just more like a chore, aren't they? So you got to think, it all stemmed down to the problem of, I think that was it, done, dusted, not getting the the recognition for work, and everyone just was tired by the end of it.
And especially when it's like the economies just don't scale for a bubble scene or a small tournament organizer to work independently. Like, you need to be DreamHack, you need to be NGE, you need to have sponsorship from Psyonix, else it's just not going to happen, because you can't run anything that's of any significant size without Psyonix's approval or support support. Actually,
well,
like, you know, the only reason
numbers with you, ain't I? And it's that case of to run a bottom tier Rocket League event, I think, to cover the whole of Europe. You know, like the Rocket Baguettes can get by because they're sort of focused just on France. When they do international stuff, like say the Rising Stars, it's not really with sponsors. It's just off their own backs. But if you were to try and get the whole,
as well,
yeah. If it was to actually run a profitable event, you'd be looking at a 10k prize pool, and that's only because Rocket League's a smaller event where you can get more people out to play for 10k. If it was CS, it's not the same, is it? You know, you wouldn't be getting the top level of talent going for 10k prize pools in CS. And that's just because of where Rocket League is at the moment. But like we said, 10k prize pool is double the community guidelines, so you can't run that without Science's backing, and it's been shut down in the past.
And we can say from experience, by the way, that we have had tournaments where we've tried to get $10,000 of prize pool, but it's not been approved by Psyonix for XYZ arbitrary reasons. So do you want to go into those details, or do you want to leave it?
No, we can just say sponsors are wanting to get on in. And sponsors really like Rocket League, because you got to think it's so PG in contrast to a lot of games like even, your League of Legends, which still has the factor of you are trying to kill each other, and the same with Overwatch. So sponsors do like Rocket League, but they just don't know how to play with it. If you can literally, I know a lot of sponsors and organizers that if they can get that community guideline like acceptance, that is the biggest thing for them. They just don't know how to go about getting that approval.
Exactly, and it's not even like these like small little shitty sponsors. Like some of the biggest sponsors in the world. Like I've never told the story about Omen. That's certainly one for the record books later down the years. But trust me, like Omen by HP, they were going to get involved in Rocket League, and that shit hit the fan quick. So trust me, like there are sponsors of a massive caliber that want to get involved in Rocket League, but for whatever reason, they're not getting into RLCS, and they can't sponsor anything outside of RLCS because Psyonix has just straight up just said fuck you, no. And I'll summarize this whole story and all the EU issues by quoting this comment that I put down on the Reddit thread, essentially, about asking why they shut down. There was if you go on Reddit right now, you can go to the Rewind Gaming is shutting down story. There's someone that asks who Rewind were and what they were able to do. Someone explains who Rewind Gaming were, and he asks, so is this an issue of poorly managed community events? Do game orgs operate as volunteer organizations? Is there not enough creativity to find a way to make regional gaming events possible? Is it the community's fault? And this is my response, which basically sums up my thoughts pretty handily instead of the whole issue. The issue is with the poorly managed scene. Rewind couldn't operate because Psyonix's community rules disallowed them to. They couldn't sustain weeklies as they returned so little while costing such a fortune over time. They couldn't run another Coliseum or Neon Dream because Psyonix didn't want to support them, and quality sponsors in EU want to support bigger prize pools than the $5,000 limit. Anytime Rewind reached out to try and run a tournament outside of that limit, it was met with either denial or silence. Bacon, obviously your experience in this regard, do you assess that? Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yep, I pretty much agree, considering that there's only at the moment there are now only 2 orgs that operate within EU that are quite heavily focused on Rocket League. That'd be Rival and Rocket Baguettes, that have the outreach to allow sponsors, let's just say your Microsoft, Intel, Logitech, whatever, to actually trust these TOs with running an org for them to sponsor in the Rocket League sort of scene and run it well. Because you got to think, we're now down to the case of 2 big orgs, and then the rest are relatively no names, your small Reddit ones where a couple of guys are just there like, oh, let's put on a £25 just one event and that sort of thing. Don't get me wrong, you get your other stuff like Rocket Kingdom, but they're not in that same realm of they're trying to start something up. That's more just a closed community. But it's like Rocket League community orgs are now a dying breed. The last 2 remaining are only there because they've been able to branch out and make good connections, and even then they're generally people from the other orgs have moved into them as sort of like just it's all, I'm trying to think of compiling into those 2. And you got to think Rival has got NA as well, and NA's been the heavy focus. You haven't seen an EU thing going on for a while, which apparently should be changing soon, but we don't have any concrete knowledge of what's going on there because it's still hush-hush. But it's a hard scene for anyone, NA included, for a lot of the community orgs.
Precisely. And again, it's sad news, a not so shocking news story that's broken, but regardless, it is one that we have to live with, and that is the end of Rewind Gaming. So thanks for all the memories, guys. And again, I'm really hoping that something good comes out of this at some point. I'm hoping that someone changes something so that way we can actually keep staying alive. Because let me tell you, the grind in the bubble scene is a fucking chore. And coming from experience, it sucks. It can suck big time. There's a reason I don't call myself a Rocket League caster. I call myself a Counter-Strike caster. Right. Let's move on and talk about our mailbag. Again, as we always do every single week, we read off questions from the Discord community that you can join via the links in the show notes and video descriptions of every single episode episode of the podcast. There is a mailbag channel where you can send us a question, and there's a good chance we'll answer it live on an episode of the podcast. I mean, I say live, but this is not live at all, actually, this episode. So ignore that live bit and just pretend that it's, you know, it's on Twitch or some shit like that. Anyways, so one mailbag question today. It's from Aspect. He was pretty active in the chats in last week's episode. This episode, he is going to be asking us a small little question, asking, with there being 10 teams in both RLCS and RLRS next season, what do you think the ideal promotion and relegation format should be? How many teams do you think should be promoted and relegated? Should any teams from RLRS be auto-promoted without having to play any promo tournament, or vice versa with the RLCS teams being relegated? I think there needs to be a level of auto-promotion, obviously. Like, I've said this for months. I've said this for, especially in the last couple of weeks where I've been drilling at home with the whole Veloce shit. You know, there needs to be at least some auto promotion for the team that tops out the league play table. Like, if at the very least, even if it's just the first place team from RLRS replaces the last place team from RLCS, and then the second and third take on the 9th and 8th, I'd be happy with that. I think that is probably one of the most ideal situations for a league that is this small, in my opinion. Ideally, we'd have a few more names to that list, but I think that for 10 teams, and considering Psyonix is naivety, I think naivety is the right word, but like naivety in terms of moving forward with any major changes to the RLCS format, that probably is the is the best way, in my opinion, for them to go forward with it.
Yeah, essentially what you would expect to go forward, and what I personally think is the best route is 2 up, 2 down, automatic. The remaining 2 that don't go through to regionals then go off against playoffs against 3rd and 4th, like we currently got. If not that, then you'd want at least an automatic 1 up, 1 down, because it gives real stakes to those lower positions, doesn't it?
It really does, you know. Like, I mean, it's less, because like, here's the thing, right? If you go into last place in any in the RLCS, there's still a good shout that you could try and make it back in with the next with the next promotion playoffs. But in terms of the season itself, obviously we've seen Complexity have a dire situation in the season, but we can't count them out just yet because we haven't seen how well they'll do against the RLRS talents. And talking about those guys is a very, very different story in terms of trying to weigh them up, which I think we'll actually have to do a preview episode on the promotion playoffs when those matches roll around. But again, I feel like it adds a bit more weight to the league play season, especially with 10 teams coming in now. A lot of the results and a lot of the failings and a lot of the potential upsets that you could find, they'll all get mitigated by the fact that there are more matches to be played out. So there's no need to worry about any of the major there's no need to worry about any of the major, issues that we've seen in the past where it's like, oh, one day and your whole season is ruined. Even to a certain extent, I don't even think that's been the case this season. Like, I don't even think there's been a team that have sort of dropped out of the top 6 or the top 4 as a result of their one week result, essentially. You know, so with 10 teams, that certainly won't be a problem. And again, I feel like that as a result, the auto promotion for the last place and first place team and the next 2 teams in line should also just play it in a promotion tournament. I think that's probably the easiest and the best way to do things.
Yeah, and again, you just take likeness from other sports and it always works. I would argue there's no reason to differ from that format. Like, just play it safe and play it pretty standard.
Yep. The other thing I could potentially recommend is potentially doing a several day format. So that way you can that way you can sort of like mitigate the on the day performance thing, because that's been another big issue for the Rocket League scene as well, is the fact that all the playoffs take place on a single day, all of the promotions take place on a single day, and the only thing that doesn't take place on a single day is the World Championship, and that's about it, you know. In that respect, I think the promotion playoffs can be fixed in that regard. But that is the main sort of thing that I would change in terms of the promotion playoffs. So potentially even having 3 teams make it in from either side of the championship. That way you could do some very funky things with formats. It's a very awkward number to work with though, because that is 6 teams total. But we'll have to. That's something we can decide for a little bit later on down the road. For now, though, again, I feel like the easiest way is same format and go for bottom team, top team, auto promote, and then next 2 teams play promotion playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go.
Speaking of that, thinking of it, let's move on to the next bits because it's definitely again tense times, ain't it?
Yes, well, before we do, again, thank you very much for your question aspect. And if you want to get involved with the mailbag segment of the show, then, of course, the Discord links are in the show notes and video descriptions of every single episode of the podcast. Follow that link, go to the Discord. If you haven't got a Discord account, then sign up for one because you fucking just need to at this point. Like, it is the gaming app. Whoever doesn't have Discord, like, I know that we reach a few people that might not be interested in video games or might not be interested in RL esports. Well, get Discord if you are even remotely interested in getting involved with esports because it is almost a requirement at this stage. But, yeah, sign up for an account. Come join us in our little community. We talk about Rocket League EU. We talk about Rocket League NA sometimes, but mostly it is EU. And of course, there is that mailbag segment, which should also get a bit more use over the coming few weeks, or potentially even in the new year. But we'll find out about that later on down the road. For now, though, let's move on. Let's talk about some tournaments going on. Not ones that have happened just yet, but some that are coming up this weekend in conjunction with the RLRS Playoffs because we're going to do some tournament previews. It's been a while since we've done an actual proper preview show. I think we did one for Montreal before that happened, but this is actually going to be one where we do a few different tournaments, in particular with the bubble scene, because those are going to be the only tournaments going on for a little bit of time before we kick back into the World Championship and the RLCS for next season. So I wanted to highlight a couple of these ones. We'll start with the TCS Esports League. We talked about this a couple times in passing on the show. We haven't tried to put too much emphasis on it because obviously we're working on the show. So, you know, and obviously we're going to be out for this particular championship, which is the LAN finals of the TCS Esports League Season 3, live from Bern, the Bern Expo Hall from Hero Fest, which is essentially the Swiss version of Insomnia for all intents and purposes. So if you know what Insomnia is, then this is basically that, but for Swiss teams. And we wanted to highlight this because there are at least a couple of talents that we want to keep our eyes on in this 4-team tournament. Unless Bacon has died.
Oh, I thought you had died in that one. Sorry. So repeat your thing quickly.
I was going to say, like, we wanted to highlight this tournament because obviously we're working on it, but also there are a number of talents that we like to see that we see from this particular tournament that we'd like to highlight going forward. Yeah.
So big shouts, of course, has to go to Vet Geneva. We've seen what they can do, not only in the RLRS planes, but across the whole scene. Definitely, they've been dabbling into a lot of the French stuff. So Safair, Hello, and Mirrorwing. Definitely Mirrorwing, for all intents and purposes, is the big up-and-coming talent, I'm going to say here, Jay. So have a little look at that. Of course, mine, Santi, has got some good talent there. Stroby, Timo, and Sellers. And then the two sort of like shadow teams as such, the ones that just can't reach it but are trying, Swiss Incredible Rebels, Team Sir, RNZ, Caritas, Juju, and then Pincha Colada, who have only just made it to this LAN because the team that qualified couldn't attend. Big sad times there. There was a little bit of a miscommunication within the team, and so Pincha, being the 5th place team, had sort of filled in their spots. So that's going to be quite cool. So we'll be seeing Arvela, Pifax, and Guz at LAN, I would assume. Could see FBFM, but generally I think it's harder for him to make LAN since he's German.
Yeah, I think that shouldn't be too much of an issue though, because compared to the last lineup of the Coconutters, where they had Safix, who's from Denmark, that would have been much more difficult for him to get to Switzerland. I will say though that honestly, yeah, I had a lot of faith in that Coconutters team because they had Texo, Safix, and Stocky also playing, and you'll remember Stocky as well if you're an old time fan from the Juicy Kids way back in like the first season of the RLRS. So like that's some pretty decent level of talent there for us. As well as that Safix being another up-and-coming player from the Danish scene, who I've been quite hyping for the last few months. Like, you know, especially when we saw him during the Frag League tournament, there was a lot of hype around him, and he had a really good performance level. Even so much that he was the addition to the Coconutters that put them in the finals to begin with. It's just a shame that they couldn't follow through with that and actually make it, you know, happen for them. But Pincha Colada certainly are a team that could do some damage. The Swiss Incredible Rebels, though, they've always been able to make the LAN finals. I think for the past 2 seasons, at the very least. I'm not sure about season 1. My memory escapes me.
No, it weren't there season 1.
No, but Karatash was on the analyst desk. Slight digs, but regardless, Sir will be there in the losers round 2 alongside Mind Sanity, who are I think the main challengers for this particular tournament. You know, I think a lot of people think that they could do some damage against Servette Geneva, though. Is that the main question? Is like, can they really beat the team that's been undefeated in this tournament for the past 2 seasons?
I don't think it's going to happen, but like you said, they are the team that has the potential. We know because the sort of winners' final has already been played out. Unfortunately, coming into this LAN, there was only 3 matches because you're taking place on a stage alongside other events, so you're limited to 3 series, 3 I do believe best of 5s, with the grand finals being a best of 7, of course, a weighted best of 7. So the winners' final has already been played out, and Servette Geneva took that 3-0, and it was a very convincing 3-0. But we will say, on the day, Mind Sanity didn't look that great. They didn't look great against the Swiss Incredible Rebels, but still won out there, Jay. Going in against the Servette Geneva side, they didn't look that good. So it's been 2 weeks since that matchup, and of course, it's coming this weekend. I think that's a ton of time to do their homework, do their research, scrim, and they could be good looking. They could be looking good to come into those finals. So there's the bit of the black sheep coming into this one to take it.
I want to call them black sheep because I think a lot of people respect them and can see the opportunities available for them. Certainly, they have catapulted themselves to being a very significant element in the Swiss scene, especially for Stroby as well, who's part of that Arctic progressive lineup that almost actually managed to take the championship away from Servette Geneva back in season number 1. But the main storyline I wanted to highlight, obviously, was the fact that Servette Geneva are here for the 3rd season in a row. In particular, Zafer has been here for the 3rd season in a row because of all the Servette Geneva lineups they've had, there have been several changes over the course of history, but the one element for Servette Geneva that's remained here in the grand finals has been Zafer. The first season had Zafer, Sack, and Flav involved in that roster, and this season it's Hello, Mirrorwing, and Zafer that are all in for season 3. And again, he won the season 2 trophy, so he's on for the 3-time, mate. He is like the turbo pulsar of fucking Switzerland, Joe.
That is pretty much it. You gotta be thinking there is such. It's a bit like early days OC when I look towards the Swiss scene there, Jay, where you've got one team that just absolutely dominates, but now you're starting to get these other teams falling on through. I know this season wasn't as great because there was the big transfer kerfuffle where everyone just decided to move about. But going into next season, definitely, this is going to be the builder and the big statement from Mind Santa coming in. So it's definitely one to watch this weekend.
Yeah, and again, me and Bacon will be the casters for it, so I'm looking forward to another trip back to Switzerland. This will be my 4th time visiting Switzerland. I think it's your 5th over. No, sorry, 6th overall, I think. Yeah, so 6 times you've been, 4 times I'm going to go, and it's going to be real fucking fun. We have Trox, Nukes, and Destro as part of the analyst test. We love Trox, social media manager for Aftershock, so he's going to be a great old time. Nukes and Destro also competing in their own respective teams. Destro, the former Coconuts player, and Nukes was a part of Pinch Colada, actually. That's correct, actually.
Season, which is quite funny.
Yeah, no, that's true, actually. Was he a part of this season as well? I can't remember.
No, not of this season. It was quite funny as well, because Destro's stepping in on the analyst desk, because Guz was originally going to be on the analyst desk, but he's been called into question because he needs to play for Pincher. So,
oh, dear.
It was like... It works.
It's a bit of weird swappage, but regardless, it doesn't matter too much. We've also got EDSM as part of the stage host, I believe, or the desk host. I'm not really sure. One of those 2 things. The bottom line is that it's going to be a fantastic time with a lot of Swiss talents, and again, me and Bacon are going to be there casting as we always do, live from the Switzerland stage. So make sure you tune in at twitch.tv/TCS Esports League. And we want to talk about a second Bubble C tournament that we've got going on as well, the Baltic Esports League. So this one actually takes place at the exact same time. So make sure you have this in multi-Twitch because this is another rising region that's getting a little bit of investment and has a fun little time ahead of itself, especially with some of the talents that we've seen. Like from last season especially, I can remember a fucking sick clip from this from the final goal, essentially. It was like some Justin Turbo Pulsar level shit where this guy, I can't remember his name, but essentially he takes the dribble up from the kickoff, up high, directly in point blank above the crossbar, and pinches it into the net, and it's amazing. It's truly amazing. Like, Jaro Jam loses his shit, and it's going to be hilarious. And obviously, Jaro Jam and RLRS will be the boys taking you through those matches over in Tallinn, over in Estonia. So, again, another LAN finals for another small scene that could be quite fun to watch.
Yeah, another one as well. Remember, like we said, at the same time, some multi-twitch. Tune on in. I do believe their one starts at, 10 a.m. GMT. TCS starts at 9:30 a.m. GMT. Because they're early morning slots and that, of course. So make sure to get up, have your breakfast, have your coffee, and tune into some good Rocket League to start your day off right.
Yeah, I think the key storylines for this one, obviously, is the fact that the Team Black Diamond, essentially, are the team from last season called the Professional Ball Chasers, if I recall correctly.
No, it's Time Chasers. They're the pseudo-reigning champions.
Yeah, okay. Why Not Party, Mimphapy, and Trex are the players that were part of the Professional Ball, part of the Professional Ball Chasers, or at least two of them were. And obviously, they're up against this new squad of the Team Black Diamond side. It's also a best-of-9 match. So the first time we've seen a best of 9 in a very long time. I think the last significant usage of it was during the RLC Pro League. So rather than having, I believe, a best of 7 or a bracket reset or anything like that, because there is no bracket, it's just this one match and this one final, stretch it out to be best of 9, and we'll see how well this goes for the Baltic scene. I imagine that a lot of people won't enjoy it in terms of the rest of the main Rocket League talent, or the rest of the Rocket League scene. But it'd be interesting to see if it works on a small scale. And again, it's tournaments like this where you can test out some interesting formats,
Yeah, and definitely one to not snuff, because you look at the prize pools of both of these. BESL has got roughly about $1,100 going to the winners, about 630 going to runners-up, which isn't anything to snuff, and then TCS, of course, with $1,500 to winners, 1,000 to second, 600 to third, 400 to fourth. So you got to think, like, the scenes are smaller, but there is a good bit of money going to these guys. When you got to think they're not the top pro level, they're focusing on the national level, and they're definitely reaping the rewards for that.
And the key thing as well was the fact that obviously with the bubble scene is starting to collapse, these national and regional tournaments, like this is what's going to become the future of the bubble scene essentially. So, and we've already started to see some talent get produced. Again, Savet Geneva almost had like a really good run in the RLRS qualifiers. So we're certainly going to I think moving forward, Bacon, we're going to try and highlight some more of these tournaments going on. Like this is one of the original ideas for Aftershock. But in terms of the news and obviously with everything like kind of falling to pieces around this kind of level, like I feel like it's important to try and highlight some of the few tournaments that we've got going on. So we certainly will try and bring to light some of these matches and tournaments that are going on throughout the European scene. So keep it locked to Aftershock. And if you are a tournament organizer, then you can follow us on Twitter at RLAftershock and DM the account. The DMs are open. And if we think the tournament's good enough, we'll highlight it on the show. But a big tournament we have to talk about before we get into our tournament roundup of the week is obviously the RLRS Playoffs, because that is coming in just a few days' time when we have to preview the big names, the big dogs, the big boys that will be attempting to get into the RLCS for the next season. Discombobulators, AS Monaco, Method, and Singularity came out in the top 4, and 2 of them will be auto-promoting straight through to the next season of the RLCS. 2 will be dropping down to face off against the loser teams of the RLCS and trying so they can take their spots away from them. So the matches are as follows. Discombobulate is taking on AS Monaco in the winners finals. The winner will qualify. The loser will be going to the losers finals to face on against the winner of Method versus Singularity, and then the winner of that match will also be the second team through. So what are we making these matches, Bacon? We'll start with Discombobulators versus AS Monaco.
So, Discombobulators versus AS Monaco, such a tasty little treat for us, we have to say. These two teams definitely look in the 2 best teams of the season. And for me, Discombobulators, I reckon, are the weakest side on paper, because naturally AS Monaco have RLCS talent through and through. Maybe not extra, him being the RLRS talent, but he's an up-and-comer and he's the one with the most potential on the squad, of course. Discombobulators have had such a dream season. When you coming into this season, Jay, when we both spectated it that there'd be a top 4 finish, but we thought 3rd or 4th. We did not think there'd be top 2, did we? They have just absolutely been hammering it out to actually finish 1st in league play. This is a team that I wouldn't be surprised if they win. So it's AS Monaco, probably with the little upper hand advantage, but it's like 55 to 45 in AS Monaco's favor, isn't it? So by all means, Discombobulars can take it. And for me, that match is going to be so hype.
Oh, yeah.
You take that, you're in the RLCS, you drop down, you can have another chance of making it to the RLCS. It's given so much weight and potential to the top two finish.
And the cool thing is, think about the storylines from each of these two sides. Discombobulators, these guys were almost entirely, not completely, but almost entirely no-namers coming into this tournament. Like, they're getting a little bit of notoriety by making some qualifier runs, but nothing ever significant, and always at a national or, like, you know, lower level, bubble scene level of talent. We thought to ourselves, as you mentioned, we thought maybe top 4. Maybe they might just scrape through to stay in the next season of the RLRS, but imagine them going all the way to first place in the league play table and then winning against AS Monaco, who many believe to be the best team in the whole league. Like, iGniite, Tigray, and Extra, that's nothing to fucking slouch at. But for them as well, it's also a redemption story. Tigray and iGniite especially, they were former RLCS and RLRS talents, with Tigray getting dropped from Mousesports and iGniite getting dropped from TSM. Imagine how great it would be for them to win this match and then move in and try and tackle their former teammates and try and move on and become another notable squad. Like, it's all possible just from this one best of 7, I believe it is. And that sounds about right to me. Best of 7 page playoff system. So yeah, that's how it's going to work essentially. So like from a storyline perspective, this match is going to be hype as shit. I think from a skill perspective, it could also be pretty fucking great as well. That being said, when they took each other on in the league play season, it did end 3-1 to the favor of AS Monaco. So it does imply that in terms of just raw power and raw talent, ASM have the edge above Discombobulators.
The thing there, though, is, Jay, to counteract that, Discombobulators are a really smart team. You'll notice they adapt to opponents. So come around second time, I reckon they would have figured them on out. And ASM, for me, still are a very much, I don't want to say one-trick pony, but they're all about aggression, the fast-paced, very meta Rocket League right now. Whereas Discombobulators are heavy against the meta. They adapt to their opponents, find their weaknesses, and then beat them. The problem was ASM Monaco is just so strong. So naturally, second time round should be a better chance for them. The only problem with that, Jay, is AS Monaco are quite a big football club, and they've just brought them in for a boot camp week, you know? So, that's not made it easy for Disco here.
No, and I feel like as a result, this is going to be a very, very tough little time for them. Obviously, it's going to be tough for Discombobulators because these guys are like they are going to hammer it home. They're going to go as close as possible in terms of like, you know, just trying to make it in, because obviously this is not a cheap team. This is AS Monaco we're talking about. They are paying top dollar for this kind of a roster, and they are looking to find some success out of it essentially. So for them, it's going to be a tough little. It's going to be a tough graft essentially. Not just in terms of the talent itself, but also in terms of the practice and the warm-up and trying to get to that point. As you say, they're in boot camp. They are going to be grinding hard to get into RLCS for next season. The question again remains for our predictions. Who do we think is going to win this match? I'm going to go AS Monaco, but I think Discombobulators are going to put up a fight. My scoreline prediction is going to be 4-2.
I'm going to go for the upset victory. I believe in the Discombobulators, lads. I reckon they can do it. I'm going to be, you know, your story teller. It's going to be game 7, Jay. It's going to go the whole way. It's going to be a hard-fought battle, and Discombobulators take it through. But I don't think that's the last we'll be seeing of ASM.
Well, regardless of who wins, it won't be the last of the losers, because obviously they got to drop to that losers finals and take on Method or Singularity. Now, these guys are, I think, a much more different story in my opinion, because for Singularity, obviously, they are a team that have managed to smash it out of the park, not quite to the same extent as the Discombobulators, but they were a team that we highly rated going into this season, and Method were a team that were on the downward spiral, trying their best to try and pick up the pieces with Tadpole being added to the mix. So this is going to be another complicated one, because Method are the new Epsilon for me. They are the new Epsilon in the sense that they can either win really well, like they got victories above the likes of fucking AS Monaco in the past, And they also have some games where it's like, oh my God, this team is terrible. And for them especially, the pressure is on because, as we mentioned several times in the past, their jobs rely on them making the RLCS this season. And against the Singularity side, that's not going to be an easy matchup. They are on the last life. If they lose any of their matches in this playoff bracket, then they are done.
Well, lose any matches, they're done from this bracket, but they'll go into the regional promotion tournament, the old style. So they won't get that spot into RLCS, but they'll have to go on and face its TSM or Complexity next week, isn't it? So, but you got to think they're harder components comparably. So this is a difficult matchup to predict between Method and Singularity. I want to back Method purely because of how much this means to them. And like you said, their jobs are technically on the line. We know those contracts are probably not looking too good right now, considering how long Method has been back in this roster. And if they can get through to RLCS, they should be, that's job security back again. But you got to think if they don't do it, then that's going to be the start of a nightmare.
Yeah, for me, my problem here is the fact that with Method, I can't confidently predict them to win a series. Just because, again, the same situation with Epsilon, when back in the day of the Gfinity Elite series, the issue was always with Epsilon is like, are they going to perform on the day? And it's like, well, I have no idea. The best I can do is just take a decent guess compared to the opposition. And Singularity, they've been doing really, really good. The only reason why they're even ranked lower than Method is the fact that they were a single game off of game difference. So I believe, and again as well, also these two teams were tied up with AS Monaco as well, and they were leading by 4 games of difference above Method. So, in terms of how close it is, it's a much closer matchup than people think overall. And I think that as a result, Singularity, especially if Method aren't on top form, then this is going to end up being a Singularity victory in a one-sided fashion. Either that or Method will take it close. Those are my 2 predictions, but I'm going to lean on the side of Singularity just because I'm not going to go with a team that's inconsistent. They could win. I'm going to give them that caveat. But for me, it's got to be all about Singularity in terms of my predictions. I'm going to say 4-2 or 4-3.
I'm going to say, let's go 4-2 to Method for me here, Jay. Like I said, I reckon the amount of drive that's required will finally get them through. But you got to think then it's from the, out of the fire and into the frying pan. Because after that, they've got to go up against the loser of either Discombobulator and AS Monaco, which for these two teams, that's a lot harder.
And let's present some scenarios in that respect, obviously, because, we think AS Monaco are going to make it through the first matchup. Is that both agreed, or?
Yeah, like I said, I reckon Discombobulators will make it.
Okay. Well, let's go for a couple of different matches then, a couple of different match scenarios, and try and make some predictions about it. Because losers final, let's pretend that Discombobulators and Method take the wins. So we've got AS Monaco versus Method. What do we think about that matchup?
ASM will go through on that one. Like
that's not even a challenge.
The thing is, whoever drops from the uppers, I think will go through. It's
okay.
That case of there's so much gusto going into it today, unless it is that on the day performance is so damn bad, which you do get every now and then, but it's actually far and few. You get a lot of teams that do drop and then somehow pick it up because they've been given an hour to scrim, quickly talk about it. You'll quite often get the case of they'll call up other teams, be there like, please can we scrim, all of that. Sure thing, let's do it. And they'll pick up the pieces and analyze where they've been going wrong. And the problem here, Jay, is I don't see Method or Singularity beating either Discombobulators or ASM after the amount of time they've put in to get here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree, to be honest. I think that both those teams should be able to make a decent run. I think the Singularity might be the biggest upset potential against them, and I feel like they would be the biggest upset potential against the likes of the Discombobulators in particular. I think if we got the situation where the Discombobulators faced off against Singularity, then that match could swing either way, especially when you take a look at their record between each other. That was a 5-game series that ended up in Singularity's favor when they took each other on during round number 3. Week 3, excuse me. That was the
Yeah, but you take a look at it, Method against ASM, they beat them back in week 3, 3-1 Method.
Yeah, but in terms of consistency though, in terms of consistency though, like Method, I don't think that their past results can be as reliable as someone like Singularity's, for instance. You know, I feel like that in terms of Singularity and Discombobulators, I think that their previous engagements will be a lot more. They'll be a lot closer to. They'll be a lot more reliable to use as resources for research rather than someone like Method in their series against ASM, in my opinion. So. That's where I'm going with that one. Yeah. I think Singularity could make that run through Discombobulators. Obviously, we can't make a prediction until we see the actual results, but in terms of these 4 teams, who do you think is the most likely to make it into the RLCS directly from this tournament?
Directly from this tournament, like I said, I reckon Discombobulators and ASM. But realistically, when you look at these 4 teams, anyone could do it. And I'm going to say my heart so badly wants Method to go through, Jay. You know, purely because these guys have been grinding out for so long. But would that then only further enforce the bad relationship, the bad tactics between B and Rick's Runday? Like, they get rewarded because we want them to finally succeed, but the problems are still there.
I think that's the main issue again with Method, and again, the reason why I can't predict them. So yeah, I'm agreeing with you on that one. Discombobulators, AS Monaco. Solid third would be Singularity, and then last, in my opinion, would be Method. But again, with Singularity and Method, if they do end up going down that prediction road, they should end up playing off in the promotion playoffs anyway, so we'll see how well they can do in that particular tournament. Again, we'll bring you that preview when those results are decided, but for now, look forward because it's going to be a fun little time. Let's talk about last week then, because we now have our tournament roundup from the last week of the RLCS, which was the playoffs, where we saw the 4 teams that were qualifying. We'll run you through the bracket very, very quickly. Obviously, Run of Vitality beating out Mousesports 4-0 on the sweep. They managed to get to the semi-finals against Veloce and make it in as the top 4 teams of the region into the World Championship. In lower round 1, Dignitas reverse swept FC Barcelona to face off against Mousesports, and surprisingly enough, they also managed the victory above Mousesports as well at 4-2 on the board. Moving on to face off against REcipricity, where they took them to the limit, but REcipricity did end up coming out on top, moving to those European finals. Renault Vitality also had a close series against Veloce, denying the reverse sweep to take on REcipricity, where they got swept out 4-0, and REcipricity therefore are your European regional champions. Very, very simple stuff coming in from the mostly French roster. Right. I think I want to start with Mousesports, or as we're going to call them this week, Bottlesports. You called them that last week, but this week I'm all on board the Bottlesports. Holy shit, what happened here? This was a disaster of a week for Mouse.
So, I'm going to say it's a disaster of a week, everyone apart from Speed and Cooks here. And that leaves the problem with this roster.
Oh, no. It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, it wasn't so bad in week 5, but dear, oh, God, coming into this week, fucking a lot looked like a deer in headlights continuously. This was, again, the problem I had last season of just complete whiffs, overextending for balls, going for plays he shouldn't do. And it looked so good, even to the point of I had forgiven him, Jay. Come to the 4 fucking chances they had to make LAN in a row. They had 4 games back-to-back across 2 weeks. Win one of those series, you're going to LAN. And they couldn't do it. They had 4 chances and couldn't do a single one. And not week 5, I'll give him a pass on that, but definitely during the playoffs, a lot was just absolute Garbo, and we know the reason. You know, he was having internet problems during the first series, then had to travel to his friend's house, which was, like he said, 40 minutes away for the series against Dig. But at that same time, like, they were in the, and this is going to be tinfoil hat time, they were in the Mousesports, like, house, gaming house in Germany for weeks 2, 3, and 4. Now, they were fantastic reverse sweeps on those weeks, Jay. As soon as they go home, they shit the bed. I think we put ankle bracelets on each of the Mouse players and don't allow them to leave that house.
Just straight up medieval. He's pulled the medieval torture card, guys. He's going to strap them to the Mouse Sports gaming house and tell them to sit there and play Rocket League for 15 hours a day.
So the fact is, Mouse Sports are weird. In a LAN environment, when they're next to each other, they're phenomenal. They're a great team. And we've seen that from DreamHacks. We've seen that from them playing in the same gaming house next to each other. But put them online in their own bedrooms, and for some reason they become toddlers. Apart from Speed. Speed is forgiven. His back must be hurting after those 2 weeks. I mean, he's not resulted in
Fucking
in
hell,
a
man.
win,
I thought I was
bad.
supposed to be the savage one on this show. Jesus Christ.
But when you're a big Mouse fan like I am, this is just frustration. This is venting right now.
Oh, no, I can agree. I've seen the potential in this lineup for so long. And of all the teams that we thought could be upset, we didn't. I thought that it would have been someone like, I thought that it would have been someone like Renner Vitality, actually, to be honest, that would have fallen down and potentially gotten upset by some of the other squads. But
well, no,
Sports,
I expected Vitality to make it through. I thought they'd lose to Mouse, and that was more me thinking, like, please, Mouse, do it, because I didn't have trust in Mouse dropping. I called it.
No, that's why I'm saying Renner Vitality. If there's one thing that could have happened, the possibility of them potentially going to a 7-game series against someone like Dignitas, for example. But that's again a completely different reality and potential that it's just never going to have to happen anyway. But yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, I feel like with Mouse Sports, we've got the reverse PSG. Remember PSG and their sort of like initial run with Fruity and how they had how not only did they have a lot of talent and performance, they only had it online. On LAN is where they shit the bed hard. Like, they won so many online cups, so many online tournaments back in the day. And then eventually it took them a lot of mental sort of like fortitude to push forward and finally get some LAN victories. Whereas Mouse Sports, it's the total opposite. They fucking blow it out of the park on LAN. They destroy DreamHacks. And of course, as you mentioned, they destroyed during the season when they were playing in the gaming house. But then they reset back to normal and suddenly they've bottled it. Like, they've completely screwed it up. 2 series they played and 2 games went out of a total of 10. Like, that's manic numbers that I don't think I would have ever expected from Mouse Sports, even on a low point. Like, there's something, I think that, as you mentioned, this is one of the few times where I would actually advocate for a team house. Like, me personally, I'm not a fan of team houses. I think they're just like the esports edition of sweatshops, in my opinion. But, like, in this case, this is one of those cases where it's like, okay, actually, this might actually be beneficial for the team, because the results are right there. They fucking smashed it out of the park when they were in the house, and now they've been smashed out of the park now that they're out of the house.
There's a beautiful irony in it, because Cooks was still in the gaming house because he was having internet issues at home. And a lot had said this, like, on a stream, like, a couple of days before. And that's why, like, they'd come home after their, like, little boot camp thing. And it's like, oh, Cooks is still there because he's the only one with internet issues. Oh, boy. No, you don't tempt fate here, buddy. No, you don't say that.
Where is the house located? Is it still in Cologne or in Germany?
I can't remember. It's Germany. I can't remember if it's Hamburg, Cologne, or Berlin off the top of my head.
Okay, I was gonna say, it's like, mate, imagine a lot trying to get to fucking a German city from Sweden. Just like, holy shit, that would suck.
40 minutes.
40 minutes to catch a flight. Quick, go. Oh my god,
not possible. But
yeah,
it's such a frustrating one, and the reason why it hurts me so much, Jay, and you can probably understand it, is like, I had massive doubts about a lot coming to these last 2 weeks. I'd accepted he was the right choice. I put everything down, and then that bottling. Oh boy, it was like, built up to the trust, man, and it's just gone.
Well, then let me ask you something else then. How much do you think the internet issues for a lot had to play into his lack of form on this playoff tournament?
Again, I'll put it all completely down to that. Like,
is that your Mouse Sports fanboy talking, or is there something else to this story?
I want to put it down to that. The week 5 was a bad performance from the entire team. We're going to give it that. But considering
but
that
it was against Veloce and Reciprocity, so
Yes. And this playoffs, it was, just down to a lot. He was the one with the internet issues, so I'll give it that is just internet issues. But it's still like, it's just all in all, just what could have been. And it is more the fanboy aspect of it, which hurts the most.
Well, look, right, I feel you to a certain extent. I don't consider myself to be a fanboy of any teams that are, unless it's a European versus North American team. In that case, yeah, I am a full fucking fanboy. The bottom line still is the fact that I think that it sucks so bad for Mousesports because they've shown time and time again that they have such a great amount of potential, but today they've just not been able to show it, and the result is that they're not making it to LAN finals against all odds. A team that is making it to LAN finals though is fucking Dignitas. It's funny as well because just on the day of the was it the day or the day before? I can't remember, but on the day of the around the weekend of the playoffs, Astral had a bit of a moment on stream. There's a deleted clip somewhere that you can find. I actually have the streamable link, so I have the video with me. But there's a video of him essentially like just shitting on the Dignitas coach, Verge. Everyone perceived it as drama, even though they say it was just a little bit of banter. Make of it what you will at the end of the day, but essentially it's something along the lines of, our coach is stupid because they actually didn't use that word. He used a much more different word, which I'm not going to say. But he essentially said, our coach is stupid because he doesn't let us play in he doesn't let us play ranked unless it's with our teammates. Well, apparently it fucking works because they actually made it. They did it. They beat FC Barcelona in a reverse sweep series. They beat Mousesports 4-2, and then they went against REcipricity, where they had a 7-game series against the best team, provably, in Europe. Like, this is the Dignitas that was so quiet from last week. We were saying last week they've had a quiet season. They're probably not going to make it to LAN, but considering the elements of this roster, I think that's absolutely fine. This season, this weekend, oh fucking no. Astral popped the fuck off. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
And don't get me wrong, it was partly down to poor performances from both Mouse and Barca. Barca started off really strong earlier, but then they really dropped off and Dig was able to step up their game. But it was just a weird one because I was doing a RLCS viewing party with Danny and Trox, right? And we were just we couldn't stop memeing on that. And it's like, why is everyone playing ranked when if you don't play ranked, you play at this level, you know? And having a massive go at it. Like, don't get me wrong, it was just, such a dumb thing. And we were talking it out. But I'm going to say it now, the playoffs here, were just such a weird fucking case. It feels like no team, bar Vitality and REcipricity, I'll give Veloce a shout as well, but the top three were playing good. Everyone else was a little bit poor. And I'll say Dig picked it up as they kept going through the day, but it was just like a weird one. No one seemed really prepared for the playoffs, Jay.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I didn't watch much of Dignitas. I caught the tail end of the FCB series, which we'll get to talk about in a little bit. Obviously, that was on my birthday, unfortunately, so I didn't get the chance to watch many of the matches, with the exception of the last match in the World Championships and, of course, the Dig FCB and Dig Mousesports matchup as well. For Dignitas, though, obviously, this monster performance from Astral has come out of the fucking blue, basically. And the question is, are they going to be able to do the same thing again come the World Championship?
I don't think so, because I don't think a carry like that, like I said, considering that today was the weekend was a very weird one. For me, Yuko would have to really pick up, and I'm pointing him out. He has been in a bit of a slump this season, and that has caused a lot of problems. Like, Astral has been double committing on him, like we were saying about how Bluey was doing a very similar thing, and he looked very good at the start here because he wasn't double committing over Devo, but then that all started happening again towards the end because I don't know, Barca problems. Dig at the moment it feels like a bad team chemistry. You've got Astral, who wants to be that star player and is putting too much pressure on himself, or not pressure on himself, but he's trying to do too much in the team. His teammates aren't falling in line. They've all got different thoughts and different plans. Their rotations, it's costing them. But they showed the rare sign where it really worked, and Astral, was popping off. But going to Worlds, it's not going to be that easy. I can't see it as a continuing factor unless they can fix some things going over the next, 4 weeks until Worlds?
Yeah, 3 weeks. 3 weeks from now. So.
Jeez, that's close.
Yeah, I've still got to book my flights. So,
How the fuck have you not done that?
Oh, mate, I've been so busy and I've been lazy as well, okay? It took me about...
Flights are going to be so much more expensive. I got mine for like 70 quid.
I know. Mine's going to be expensive anyway, but it's fine. ESL paid me, so it's good. Anyways, I think, again, I have to echo your point about Yukio, because this is a player that we talked about not fitting in with Dignitas and saying if they gave him some offensive room to breathe, he'd be okay. But now, as you mentioned, like Astral taking all the offensive and now Yukio's just sort of like slipping back into the back line, just sort of like not really bothering with a whole lot of anything. Like he's been very quiet this season. And again, that's worked out well for him in terms of his own like outlook, just because of the way that Dignitas have also been pretty quiet throughout this season. But going into the World Championship, it's really going to bring out, where he stands at the moment and where his line of form is. And again, for Dignitas, I feel like it's not going to get them very far. I think, honestly, of all the teams of Europe, these guys might be the shoo-in to go out in the group stage, to be honest. Like, especially, I think actually, let me take a quick look at the group stage itself. Because if I recall correctly, they're also in one of the teams that are in the last place. The bottom seeds, yeah, they're up against the 3 Sins and then Pittsburgh and Ice. Fucking hell, yeah. Dignitas are going to have a hard graft in Group B. I feel like this is going to be a tough little one, especially as REcipricity are also there, and especially as Space Station are also there. Like this could be a very, very, very tough little time for Dignitas. And again, I feel like it's going to highlight the issues that this roster has.
Yeah, Dig, if they make it through, will be going in that lower bracket. I can call that now. Like, REcipricity are nice, easy to progress into the winners' finals, to which they gain that freebie spot into the next day. I can't see Space Station putting up a bit of a fight there, or Canberra Havoc. Dig's on the better side, arguably, but still, it's a yikes. And we'll see. I think they've got a decent chance actually looking at a bracket and make through, but it's not a convincing one,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like if there's a chance, it's a small one. So we'll see where Dignitas manage.
I reckon Group B is easier to make it through than Group A.
They also got REcipricity though, so again, you never know. Maybe Astral will pop the fuck off again, and then at that point everyone's screwed. But we'll find out later. For now, let's move on and let's jump back in the bracket a little bit. Talk about FCB. Oh, I'm so fucking happy. I'm so happy about this result. I haven't got anything against the FCB guys. I've got everything against the analysts and the people who picked MVP, because Bluey got the results of MVP pick from the regular season.
Which is such bullshit.
It's such bullshit. It's such bullshit. I can smell it from here. Okay, like he was the clutch playmaker. That doesn't conduce to being is there some sort of statistic as to why Bluey is here right now? Like I understand that they were showing statistics on the little image screen of the guys before him, but they didn't show any statistics for Bluey. The best thing that I can come up with is the fact that he got second place in Golden Striker, first in clutch playmaker, and third in save of the season. But again, I bring up the stat from last week. Alpha got 82% goal participation and looked like the only fucking good element of his side. Bluey, and it's great because obviously Bluey got the MVP award, and then coming into this playoff, he was completely fucking silent. Completely silent for FC Barcelona, and it makes me so happy, not for anything against FC Barcelona or Bluey, but because it's the ultimate fuck you to whoever made him the MVP. You fucked up big time, guys.
Even then, like, because I mean, it's a voting aspect, so I don't know what the whole desk is doing on this one, but second Freaky? Like, of Veloce, you're going to pick Freaky as the MVP from Veloce?
What about Cassio, the guy? What about Cassio, the guy who literally, as he was picked up in this season, fucking catapulted Veloce into the next into the fucking second place of the championship series? Like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you like? There's so many better picks than Bluey and what he was able to do and where FC Barcelona stood in that respect. And I understand that my own individual sort of argument is limited by the fact that you can say, okay, well, FC Barcelona only placed one higher than TSM did in this season. But it's like, even so, like, where is the statistic that gives Bluey the edge above a lot of the other players in this one?
The funny thing is that with Bluey, you're giving him the MVP, but he is the problem with Barca.
Exactly.
He's the one that is double. The reason why he's got all those stats is because he's cutting rotations and stopping his teammates from playing. He is fucking them up. So it's no wonder that he's getting the most stats from them. But at the same time, it's just like, no, you don't do that. It's always that triangle. Don't we say it within Rocket League? You got to keep turning the triangle around because that's the players doing, just rotating. Every now and then you can get a cut in, but that's every now and then, and that's to throw your opponents off. Not every shit in time, Bluey.
Exactly. Oh my God. Mate, why are you not on the desk? Fucking hell, dude. Like, this is, again, it's such a travesty because I feel like there were so many better picks. I'm not saying give Alpha the MVP. If you want to go against Alpha because he got relegated, fine. What about Casio? What about Chaussette? What about Fruity? What about Speed? What about fucking...
should have been the MVP of this
I think Speed, I think all these guys are decent shouts. I think we can literally have a fucking round table. Fuck it. I think I might just get some of the players in from like from the bubble scene of the RLRS and actually have a round table discussion about who should have been the MVP this season and include Bluey in those conversations because I don't believe he fucking should have been. And this series is the perfect example of exactly why. He was silent, completely dead in the last 4 games of that series. FC Barcelona had the first 3 and then shit hit the fan and they were unable to score any more games off the back of that. Yes, Dignitas had a pop-off, but they were 1 game away from having this entire run shut the fuck down by FC Barcelona. And what happened? Who was the element that was lost? It was fucking Bluey, guys. It was fucking Bluey.
And the thing for me is, knowing Barca, I reckon there's going to be a roster swap going into next season, and I can already tell they're going to get rid of the best player on Barca at the moment, Devo, and that just I can already see the end.
Imagine from last season to this season saying that the best player in Barca is fucking Devo.
Yeah, that is the problem, and you can already see its darkest timeline for Barca, and that's going to change up because apparently. Ronicky and Bluey quite like each other, like in how they play, but the problem is Bluey just keeps cutting up Devo, and Devo was popping off in that Dig versus Barca series. He was a crucial aspect to it, then still, as soon as one player goes silent within a series, it's done. You know, it don't matter.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like it's so frustrating because like it feels like a really stupid. Again, we called it last week. We said, look, if anyone picks a really stupid situation, then just fuck all y'all. Well, here you go. Fuck all of y'all. Like, why was this a thing? This was a really, really, really stupid idea. And again, the proof is in the pudding because look who's in last place of the promotion of the playoffs, and look who's going to be competing in next season of the RLCS, and probably relegated to RLRS if they don't make a change. Because God, FC Barcelona. Of the tragedy teams, this team is the highest ranked, and that's really not saying much. They should not have been in this position right now. And if we had a 10-team RLCS, I would say that some of the teams from the lower levels, RLRS, like the Discombobulators and ASM, they'd probably be able to overtake and take FC Barcelona's position and probably do a better job with it.
Oh, that would be so glorious. You got to think ASM next season taking Barca like down and just the battle of the football clubs once again is great. But
yeah,
if Barca wants to fix something, they're going to have to do a radical change and get rid of Bluey, I think.
It's got to be Bluey, man. Like,
and it's super hard because Bluey's a great player. We can't deny it. But just at the moment, it's the same old problems of just trying to do too much. It's the same as what you get with Astral. The problem is, like, Barca don't know how to control him.
That's the thing with Bluey as well, is the fact that he's always been that player who has been fucking just like... He's the guy that came through the bubble scene, the weekly tournaments, way back when those were a thing. I still remember sitting in a fucking Rival Esports call during one of the Rival Esports weekly and just watching Bluey carry his fucking team and just destroy everybody in the server and just wreck face, destroy everything, just do everything essentially. And so that's the thing is that mentality, if it's carried over to the RLCS, that mentality is the kind of thing that could hurt teams like this. You know, it's the kind of mentality that obviously is like, if you're expecting yourself to do everything, then the rest of your teammates are going to be left out and you're going to be getting in their way because they're also trying to do things to try and help you perform. And if Bluey can't break that mentality, then unfortunately his star power is just going to go to waste.
Well, that's the thing. If the Rocket League scene was better developed, I could see Bluey being just hard stuck to RLRS because he would just get that rate. At that level, you can solo carry, essentially. And I could just see him being like, the Terminator of RLRS, where the Bluinator will call him, where he just goes around team to team and just gets that team promoted each and every season and is just on a good whack compared to everyone else because he can hard carry at that level. Come to RLCS. No, it does not work like that. And if anything, he is the problem with the team. And it's just, there's got to be a mental change. I mean, this was the whole reason why Alpha wanted the fuck out of Barca and went with TSM. And I still don't blame his decision to do that.
Bluey. I mean, at this point, we're going to be watching him with a fucking... At this point, we're going to be keeping an eye on his every move with a fucking microscope going forward here for FCB, assuming he stays in. If not, then, well, bloody hell. We'll have to keep our eyes on FCB. We'll have to keep our chops in change and try and look out on where FCB go from here. But it's fucking hilarious. It truly is fucking hilarious to see the MVP choke so hard. Anyways... Vitality. They are the next team up on the chopping block. They came in third place, being a series behind Veloce at 5-2 and 4-3. So if they had a couple of results going well, then they may have been able to tie up against Veloce. In fact, they probably would have beaten them to the second place position. But for Vitality, this is a great result, obviously. We expected them to go to the LAN finals. We thought that they dropped down to face off against REcipricity, but no, they swept out Mousesports. And then they actually managed to beat Veloce as well. That series went a reverse sweep denial for the Vitality side, and going up against REcipricity in the next series is where they kind of got shit on essentially. But for Vitality, obviously, for a team that's sort of been very up and down, especially ever since the last World Championship, I think their consistency this season is something to certainly be praised,
Yeah, Vitality had a bad season by all accounts, and you got to think, them coming out third is a bad season, and them finishing up second, of course, by the playoffs. That's a bad season for them. Don't get me wrong, they cleaned it up with the playoffs. And relatively speaking, going through week to week, they got better as time went on. Week 5, they had a little bit of the stumble, you got to think, against Dig. Because I'm going to quickly check it now. Where would they have finished up if they beat Dig? Would they have been a top 2 spot? If so, that'd been crazy. But I was quickly checking that on the results. Yes, they would have beaten out Veloce because it's on games first before head-to-head, isn't it? Oh, yeah. That would have been a crazy timeline thing. And that, yeah. They wouldn't change anything else apart from Veloce and Vitality swapping about. But still, you can just see Vitality... They can have bad days. They're still a super solid team, but they do have bad days. And their only problem, and it's been quite a long-standing problem for Vitality, is PSG, now REcipricity. Right back at the start of the year, what was it? Scrub saying, I'm never losing to PSG. And it is always their bad team to go up against. Have
they ever actually beaten the PSG or REcipricity at any point?
Yeah, they have at some, but they've been close. And I just love the thing. I think we were talking about it. I don't know if on the podcast last week, but definitely at the start of the RLCS viewing party I was having on my stream, where I said the finals are going to be 4-0, everything else is going to be super close. And I fucking called it just because I was there like, no one's beaten REcipricity now. They're like, REcipricity have it down pat against these other teams. The only ones I could probably see them struggling with would have been maybe Veloce, but I'd take Vitality to beat Veloce any day just because of play styles. And it fucking just worked out like that. It was beautiful. And you could see Vitality by the time they got to the finals, they were done. They were out of steam. They were out of energy. Yeah. Their job was done. They've got top 2. They knew that by that point they didn't really have to care. They could just drop it there, and that's fair. That's fine. Vitality going
and I certainly believe that's the mentality for a lot of the teams that make it through the RLCS. The difference between fourth and first is about is a little over, is like $12,000, which admittedly is a decent chunk of change. But the difference is that the difference between 26,000 and 38,000. Plus, you've also got to take a look at the World Championship, where that's where the real cash flows in. That's like the 500 grand prize pool.
If anything,
yeah. It's more about the seeding. And if you make your way into World Championships, then at that point, a whole lot of people seem to care, which is okay, fair enough. I don't particularly mind that level of thinking. I do believe, however, that is probably the stupidest way to think. Just me personally, I'm the winner's mentality. It's like if you win every single series, that'll get you a lot more plaudits than just making it to land and saying fuck it, it's over. So yeah, I'm all aboard. I'm all aboard the Vitality hype train at the moment, and I guess we can quickly bleed into Reciprocity to close out the show.
I was just going to say, Jay, like it just proves what I said last week with when we were trying to do up, and I said it. Teams I can see from EU taking Worlds is Reciprocity, Vitality, and that was like Vitality going in as a third, like not the top two teams from league play, and that is still going to be strong too. I can still see Vitality doing the back-to-back, but Reciprocity, they've got the stronger bet still.
Yeah, and I believe the Reciprocity, I mean, we can bleed into this right now. We talked about them potentially being the best team in the world at the moment, and I certainly think that holds true based off the way that they've handled themselves in Europe. I think their main challenge is going to be NRG, obviously, because that has been the team that has given them the most hell over the course of the last two LANs, and obviously talking about potentially where they could go against NRG if they have to meet those finals. And I think that's the most likely finals again, Reciprocity versus NRG in the World Championship. And for Reciprocity right now, again, that dominant force against Vendor Vitality, tracking down the Dignitas Monster Day. Is it going to be, again, are they our favorite pick for winning Worlds?
So right now, Worlds Finals, it's got to be NRG versus Reciprocity in the finals, right? Like you're going to do those picks, if not that, then it'll probably be NRG versus Vitality. NA only has one good team at the moment. I am making a very bold statement with that, and it's just because NRG, the only team that look convincing. Everyone else has just been so up and down. It's been ludicrous for NA. If you didn't see, I'm just going to say now, the NA playoffs, it was the exact same case as Reciprocity, but with NRG. 4-2 against EU United, who had done the same run as Dig, and then 4-0 against Pittsburgh Knights, who did the same run as, or a very similar run as Vitality. So right now, NRG and Reciprocity, they are the two kings of both regions, and they're the ones you got to be scared of going into Worlds.
Absolutely. Again, I think that they are probably, again, one of the two shoo-ins to be world champions. For me, I'm going to err on the side of Reciprocity, obviously, because I'm an EU fanboy. But again, with the question for Reciprocity going into this season. You think so? We'll talk about that in more detail. We'll talk about that in more detail when we come to our on-site LAN preview episode, because obviously we're going to be in Madrid for the World Championship. So we're going to try and get like a little round table going. I talked about it for weeks. I haven't actually sorted out the logistics behind it, but that's another problem. That's a problem for future me. That's a problem for future me, okay, right? But you know, again, I feel like the Reciprocity, like the question coming into this one was, well, okay, they've had a couple of great LAN performances. They've gone toe-to-toe against NRG. They managed to take a victory and then a second place. And then the tiebreaker was going to be DreamHack Montreal. That didn't actually end up happening. But the question, obviously, because of that was, are Reciprocity good enough to do it online? Are they good enough to do it in the RLCS? Well, the question, I think, has been answered. They have absolutely destroyed it this season. A couple of slip-ups here and there, obviously, with the way that things work out in the and how certain teams get to play a few more times than others. But if you take a look at the standings overall, you'll notice that most of the time it's just been Reciprocity been up there. You know, especially in week 3 and week 5. If they didn't have that step up in week 4, they'd also be up there as well. But again, Reciprocity, easily, I think, the best team in Europe and probably the best team in the world for my money. But we'll find out whether or not they'll be able to prove that when it comes to World Championships. For today, though, we're done. Only a little bit of Rocket League going down. We'll have to talk a little bit in more detail about, again, the RLRS playoffs coming into next week, obviously. And we should be back in a live show format with that as well, assuming everything goes right. I don't know, Bacon. You've been a little bit unreliable on me these last couple of weeks, mate.
Yeah, it's been super unfortunate, but it's just family stuff going on, like real heavy stuff at the moment, dude. So it's that case of Thursday evening suddenly turned really bad and patchy, because that's just when things come through. But we still get our recorded shows. I can do that. We were originally planning for yesterday, weren't we? But then you had work crop up for that. But
I've still got work today, actually. I'm going to go ahead and do this DIY stuff. We're actually we're reaching the hard out, so we need to go, essentially. Yeah. So I'll do the regular plugs. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at RLAfterShock, at The Eternal J, and at Digital Bacon 1 as well, if you want to keep up with our own individual linings. But again, the podcast Twitter is at RLAfterShock if you want to know when we're going to go live and when the episodes are going to be released. Of course, if you want to follow those episodes, then you can, of course, subscribe to the podcast on Twitch. Or, well, you can follow the podcast on Twitch, where we will be doing the live shows hopefully in a lot more of a consistent fashion. Twitch.tv/RLAfterShock to watch them live. If you want to watch us, however, recorded, I mean, I imagine you're probably already going to be subscribed, but if you want to change your platforms, that's okay, because we're available on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, and most of the other major platforms of distribution. I believe we're on 12 platforms total, so I'm not going to go ahead and list them all, just the major ones, of course. And you can go to anchor.fm/RLAfterShock to find your favorite platform or request your favorite way to listen, as well as find all the regular listings if you want to listen on your browser. That's going to be it from us this week. Again, the RLRS players are coming up this week. Bacon, any final thoughts before we head into those?
Just with all these big streamers moving over the mixer, dude, which Rocket League streamer is going to be moving over? I'm going to go for Jesse. I reckon he's going to make the big plug. I mean, he doesn't have the whole RLCS on, he's not a pro player, but I think he could get a little bit of a buyout from Microsoft for that.
You think so? You think Jesse going to be the first Rocket League shooter to be the mixer? I don't know if that's going to be a good idea, honestly, for Rocket League. But
I mean, it's free market for him, right?
Yeah, but I mean, how many people are really going to? I mean, we had the Gfinity Facebook thing, okay, right? I don't know about Mick. Right, that's a conversation. Like, I'm going to add that to the list of future talking points. But for now, we're going to get out of your ears. We're going to get off the airwaves and send you back home, and hopefully bring you back next week for even more of the Aftershock.